Okay, let's see if this stream is working. Gonna turn the music down a little bit. That might be a little bit too much. I can't tell. If the music is too loud or too quiet, let me know. Yeah. Let's turn on the screen so that you can see what I'm doing. That would be an important step. Cool. All right, so today I wanted to do a little bit of Worldpainter stuff because I haven't really done much on stream lately for Worldpainter, and I just thought it'd be, I don't know, I've been having a lot of fun with it lately with the new islands and everything. I don't know if anyone saw the video, but pretty cool. You should check it out. Shameless plug. Yeah. So the goal of this series, I guess if you want to call it that, is I kind of just want to walk through my process of creating a map in Worldpainter, just kind of start to finish, and just kind of do things to start out with, from the very start and see what we can accomplish. And I'm also hoping that along the way that, maybe if people want to give some suggestions for things they'd like to see made, that sort of thing, feel free to drop them in there. I can't promise that I'm going to be able to do everything, but, we'll do our best to try and do some interesting stuff. But yeah, I have no idea how many different episodes this is gonna take, although I'm anticipating it's going to be probably 4 or 5, maybe, depending on how much we get done. So I don't know, we'll check it out and we'll see. Okay, cool. So first things first, we want to get an idea of what it is we want to make, and so whenever I start a project like this, the first thing that I do is I open up Asgar's fantasy map generator, and I just mindlessly hit the refresh button a few times until I find a map that looks interesting, and that's kind of where we start. So let's go ahead and do that. I've got it open already over here. Let's pop that out. So this is just this is Asgar's fantasy map generator. You can see that up here. You can find it just by Google searching Asgar. It's Azgaar. This is a great tool because basically it gives you lots of options to, by default, there's this little pop-out thing. But there's a lot of things that you can tweak about this to, get maps that are specific to, maybe it is what you want to make or, or whatnot. I use it kind of as a general jumping off point. There's some really nitty gritty kind of stuff that you can do where it's you can adjust the provinces ratio and the year and era, and that sort of stuff I don't care about as much. I use this mainly as just getting island shapes mostly. But there's a lot of other cool stuff you can do with it, so I do recommend you check it out and play around with it and see what it is you can do. Suggestions. Do you know what a hollow is? At least I think that's the term for what I'm thinking. It's a clearing covered by rock wall on all sides. Interesting. Like Sleepy Hollow? Is that is that where the word is coming from? That sounds familiar. I didn't know the geographical definition, but that could be kind of cool. We could do an enclosed valley. It'd be kind of fun. But yeah, let's hit the new map button. That's fine. For these, I don't really want maps that are that's weird. Oh. It is doing weird stuff. Let's reset this. Okay. I guess I can't zoom. I can hit the reset zoom button. I don't know what the zooming is on this by default, but okay. Anyway. So a lot of these are kind of island chains. The issue with island chains is that you have to make the maps really big in order to fit an island chain, and to have the island still be in an appreciable size. So I'm going to try to stay away from lots of small islands and focus on doing maybe one big island. That one's kind of cool though. I love how it has this channel that goes through the middle. I don't know. This could be interesting. If we did it, I would exclude these little ones off to the side and we'd only do this section. It would be quite large, though, I think. Might not be terrible, though. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to save this. And then I will... and then we'll come back to it and see if it's still what we want. I think JPEG's fine. Okay, cool. So we have that. Let's try a couple other maps just to see what we can get. That's too spread out. Too spread out. There's an option for, like... Let's see. I always forget how these options work. There used to be options that would let us choose like what kind of map we ended up with. But I don't know. They're probably still around. I don't actually know where they are. So let's just keep searching around. That's kind of interesting too. Again, a little bit spread out. If we did this, we'd probably just take the main landmass. Interesting. This is kind of cool. I love this kind of big enclosed bay. It's kind of nice. Let's keep looking. It's not terrible. These really, really complex coastlines are going to be difficult to do, though. Just because, like, I'm not looking for this map to be, like, like 10,000 by 10,000. I was hoping for something a little bit more manageable. Maybe, like, 3 to 5,000 by 3 to 5,000, roughly. And a coastline like this is going to make that map, like, the actual landmass, relatively small. Let's try a few more. And I guess if we wanted to make the water part of the map, then that could work. If we wanted to do like some Atlantis style stuff, some underwater towns, that could be kind of cool. I'm not sure if we're going to get that deep in the Worldpainter stuff. These atolls are kind of interesting, kind of a circular ring of islands. It's not bad either. This is a little bit better. If we just took one of these. Probably this one. That's not terrible. I actually kind of like that. Let's see. I don't actually need to do the whole thing. Let's just do this part. So I think that's all I need. Maybe we'll include this bottom island just for fun. Let's go ahead and save it. Okay, let's open those up in Worldpainter and see what we got. So, first thing is we need to make a new map because this is like the default map that opens when you open Worldpainter. It's no good. I mean, it's fun to play with, but we don't have enough control. We're going to call this Worldpainter Adventures. We'll make it a 1.19 or later map. So this just lets you, if you wanted to do an older version, maybe you wanted to, work with a mod that hasn't, been updated to the most recent versions or whatever, you could make an older version map. I almost always do the most recent version because it gives us the full height limits and everything. And I don't play with old mod packs, so it makes it pretty simple. Let's see. Master dimensions are basically, it's good for kind of continent style stuff. Let's see what it says. So it's a Worldpainter dimension type. It's exported at 1:16 scale. So basically, it's like a compressed up version of a regular map. Good for making really big land masses, but for us, we're not making something that large, so we don't need to. Dimensions, this is important. The nice thing is that even though it says in multiples of 128, if we pick a number that is not in multiples of 128, it'll automatically adjust it to the closest values. So we can just kind of put whatever numbers we want in here. For a map like this, I'm thinking I'm going to do 6,000 by 6,000. We may not need all of this space. but this is going to make sure that we can have our island and we can have some water around the island so that we can get nice pictures of it, and so that it's just separated a little bit from everything else. Circular world just means that instead of a square boundary, you'd have a sort of a circular boundary. Build limits, we can adjust these. If you adjust these beyond the normal limits, so if we turn this up to like 512 or 1024, Worldpainter will actually create its own data pack that will be included with the map that will allow you to do higher than normal height maps, or terraining and stuff like that. Just be aware that if you do change the build limits to be greater than the default, so greater than 320 or less than -64, it will slow things down significantly. And every little bit of that you extend it by, everything beyond the norm, just gets progressively more and more laggy. Especially if you've got stuff built. If you don't have anything built above the height limit, it's not too bad, but as soon as you start sticking mountains in there, things slow down a little bit. So we will try to stay away from that, I think. Just keep it to the defaults. Let's see. Topography, we're going to say flat. Hilly just means that the Worldpainter includes some random noise, hills and stuff like that. But we're going to draw our own stuff, so we'll leave it flat. Level defines the height of the ground. So in this case, for most of these maps, I don't build much underground. I don't build a lot of custom cave networks or anything like that. So I'm comfortable with lowering the level of the ground down to about 1. And we'll bring the water level from 62 down to 0. And that will make sure that basically anything that is above 0 is going to be land, and anything below 0 is going to be water. That makes it pretty easy to see. It also gives us 64 blocks of water height if we need to, have some caves or something down there. But it also gives us 320 blocks now of build height in the Y direction, which means we can have more impressive mountains, which I think are more fun than caves, to be honest. We don't want lava instead of water, although that could be something interesting in the future. And we're going to turn off beaches. Beaches just add a layer of like clay and sand and gravel like down near water level, which we're going to paint all that in by hand, so we don't need it. Surface material, this doesn't matter too much. I like to set it to bare grass though, just because if we do regular grass, it'll automatically spawn with like flowers and grass and tall grass and stuff, which just clutters things. Seed, we don't need to worry about. And we will hit create. Okay, here's our world. It's a big green square. Very exciting. Okay, so first thing is first. We have the height of this set at 1. And actually, I think what I'd like to do is lower the water level down below the water. And then what we'll do is we'll raise the terrain out of that to form our little island. I think that's kind of a better way of going about it. We could have done that in the startup screen. I didn't think about it. So we're going to use our raise and lower tool. Little up and down arrows. And basically what this allows you to do is if you... I have to get my right and left. If you left click, it will raise. So we can't really tell, but that's technically raised terrain. It's like a little hill now. And if we right click, it'll lower the terrain. So another cool trick is we can go up here, here, and then show 3D view. So this is like your best friend when you're doing Worldpainter. Show 3D view pulls up a secondary little window that'll show kind of an isometric view of your map. So your map as viewed from like a 45-degree angle sort of deal. It includes some basic shadows and stuff. It helps you see what the terrain looks like. Because let's be honest, these circles mean very little. So let's see what we've actually created. Might have to zoom out a little bit. There we go. So this is what we've actually created. A very shallow little bump on the ground. And then a very shallow little circular pool next to it. So this is raised, this is lower. Pretty simple. If you've got a second monitor, sometimes it's fun to leave this open on your second monitor. That's what I sometimes do. just so I can have a nice view of the changes that I'm making in real time. But this does get a little bit laggy sometimes. It can eat up a lot of your processing power while you're working. So, you know, use it sparingly where necessary. But we're going to Control Z a couple times to get rid of these because we don't actually want to do that yet. And we're going to go ahead. So these are the default brushes. These are the ones that come with Worldpainter, I believe, unless something has changed. We have a variety of different shapes and edge contours. For lowering a bunch of terrain, I'm going to use this really solid circle with hard edges. It has a name. It's called Constant Circle. That makes sense. So this will give us the ability to raise and lower terrain, and it's going to have a hard edge. So if we lower this down to like here, and then we do our 3D view again, if we can find it. Let's see. Somewhere around here. Nope, there we go. So if we zoom in on this, what we're going to see as we zoom in, see how hard that line is? It's literally just a straight up and down line. So that's what the constant circle does. It just carves a constant radius circle, which makes a hard line. It's good for like big changes, you know, editing large swaths of terrain at the same time. But it's not a very fine edge tool. So it's not going to be as good for like actually shaping mountains and stuff, unless you're looking for something really kind of modern and hard edged. So let's go ahead and lower this. So what we're going to start out, we're going to use what are called masks. So these are modifications. So we have brushes, which are the shape of the tool that you're using. And then we have masks that define what we're going to affect with those tools. So right now, with no mask, we can affect anything. So any block on here that we want to raise or lower, we're allowed to do it. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to change these masks so that we can only affect things above a certain height. That way, when we lower things, it stops lowering before we get to the bottom of the world. If we don't have these masks on, we have to keep constant track of, you know, what height things are at, which can cause a lot of difficult issues, especially if you accidentally poke holes in the bottom of your world. If you've got water, your water is going to start draining out. And thankfully, Minecraft water won't actually drain your entire ocean. But the water falling into the void can be kind of laggy, and we just want to avoid it if we can. So we're going to say add or above, and I'm going to make this, our water level's at 0, so I'm going to make this like, I don't know, -20. That's probably a good place. It's about a third of our water depth. And we're going to go just to some random location, and we're going to lower this until it won't lower anymore. So how do I know that this cannot lower anymore, that we've stopped? Well, if we look, I can't actually move my mouse there, because if I move my mouse there, you won't be able to see the thing. But if you look down in the bottom left corner of my screen, down where you've got the little white and black stripy ruler thing, below that there's a little tiny text, probably really hard to read, but it says down here where my mouse is, if we hover over this terrain, it says height -20 of -64. So that tells us what height we're working at. Now, if we move over here, this says height 1 of 319. So this is above sea level. So the reason that I know that this brush won't go any lower is, one, because I don't see any layers being removed in the animation, and also because we've set our mask to -20. We are at -20. It won't go any lower than that by default. So we could go through and do the rest of the map like this, slowly, little bit by little bit. I don't have any patience, though, so we're going to do it a little bit of a faster way. So we're going to use what's called a flatten tool. So basically what this does is anywhere the crosshair of your tool thing is, so the little plus sign, it's going to take whatever height is covered by the crosshair, and it's going to try to adjust all the other terrain within the circle to be at that height. So as opposed to the raise and lower tool, this is just much faster. You can see it almost instantly lowers things down to our -20 height. And because it's a flatten tool and it won't go any lower than -20, we don't have to worry about that. We can also go over here to the right hand side and adjust the intensity up to 100. It's also going to make things more fast. You can see that this terrain lowers almost instantaneously. This is a great way to paint large swaths of your map all at once. We just want to make sure we don't miss any spots, especially with such a hard brush. Any points that we miss, if we, let's see if I can leave a little bit. Even if they're very small, what we'll see is that that little point is going to turn into a spike that pokes out of our ocean. Doesn't look so nice. We'll take a look at that. There's another little one. We'll see if that one's looks any better or any worse. Okay, everything should be lowered except for those two little points. Let's take a look and see what they look like. There we go. So you can see it's not the prettiest, especially because we're using such a hard edge brush. It's a very square little blip of island. Not very pretty. Really doesn't doesn't look nice. So we'll get rid of it. So we'll get rid of both of these, and I believe I always want to check the edges, but I believe that all of this is lowered down to -20. Okay. So now we need to draw our island, and the best way to do that is to create an image overlay. Let's see, where did I save this? This is in downloads. Oh my goodness, what did I call it? Oh, it's like the most recent download. Okay, hold on, let me open this up in a different tab, then I can see what I called this file. Downloads, this is called Screenshot 2024-228. That's very helpful. Okay, we're looking for S for screenshot. I don't know why this is ordered alphabetically. Screenshot 2024, so it should be at the end of my list of screenshots. Screenshot, that's 2024, 228, 309. Yes. Pretty sure this is it. Nice. Okay, so basically what this is doing is it's just taking an image that we choose. It can be any image that, you know, is an appropriate size, I guess, and scaling and everything. And it's basically just going to make a semi-transparent overlay that you can put over your map and then trace it. It seems kind of silly that we need to trace things, but it really is. It's a good technique. I usually just click fit to dimension. You can see if we move these a little bit. Oh, well, let me move them. But our current overlay is much smaller than our map. So if we click fit to dimension, it's just going to scale it up and move it around so that it fits kind of nicely. I think that's pretty good. I'm not sure if we're going to keep these little islands at the bottom. I'm not really feeling those. So I think what I might do is scale it up a tiny bit more. Maybe we'll go up to like 310. That's actually not nearly enough. Let's do like 320. Okay, it's a little better. And then we are going to just shift it downwards a little bit. And I can never remember. That's up. So we want -25 maybe. Yeah, so we really want just the main body of this island right here to be a little bit centered. Make it a little bit bigger. We're going to shift it over a little bit this direction. We can always come and change this later if we need to. That's pretty good. I would say that's fairly well centered. Probably going to lop off this little island, so that gives us plenty of space. Maybe we can make it a little bit bigger, huh? Yeah, that's pretty good. We need to move it up a little bit. That up. That looks pretty good, and then a little bit more to the right. Just so it's kind of centered-ish. This seems pretty good. Okay. We could turn on a grid if we want to. That's also an overlay we can add. For this, I don't feel like we necessarily need a grid, so I'm going to turn it off for now. Contour lines, blah, 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 image overlay. Okay, this should be good. So, now that we have this, we can go through and basically just trace it. So, we're going to want to grab a small brush with a hard edge. Actually, we probably want a fairly soft edge for this. Let's see, we have a spike circle, a linear circle, and a sine circle. I'm thinking linear is probably... Sometimes this happens. We can turn our overlay on and off just by clicking this little picture frame icon, I guess. So let's trace this. So what we want to do is we want to trace this in such a way that we're bringing this land on the bottom of the seafloor up to the surface. So again, we're going to want to use a height mask. We don't want to use at or above. We're going to want to use at or below, because right now we don't want to raise the land too high. If we raise it too high above sea level, it's going to be hard for us to control the shape of the island and where the high points are. So right now we're just going to make like a flat area. Very simple. So we'll say at or above. I'm sorry, at or below. And we are going to do land level starts at 1. So I'll probably bring this up to like 10 to start out with. Seems like a good thing. Raise or lower tool's fine. And we're just going to bring this up until we have something above land. And we're just going to take this and just kind of slowly trace the outline of our island. This won't be the final coastline. The final coastline will be better than this. But this will be a good way of getting like a general shape. This will also give us a chance to modify our coastline if we feel like we want to. There may be parts of these little Asgard maps that vibe with you, that are things you're like, oh yeah, I like that. And there will be other things you're like, oh, not such a big fan. This is also another place that if we're careful, we could use the flatten tool, and it'd be a little bit faster. Just be aware that the flatten tool is going to create a harder edge. So we're going to have to work harder to make the coastline kind of smooth. Let's slowly fill this in. This is kind of the fun artistic part of this process. I could see here, that looks like it could be the mouth of like a river of some sort. So I think that we'll add a little, poke that in a little bit. Drag this around so we can see more of it. And the big thing we want to do here, you can see this black line. This tells me that these blocks are 10 blocks above the bottom level of the land. So I want to make sure that everything gets up to that where it's surrounded by a black line, because that means I brought it all the way up to the highest height that I can. All right. The interior of this, we'll fill it in when we're done. Right now, I just want to get a basic outline. Like right here, I'm going to poke this out a little bit farther than it is on the actual map that we're tracing, just to give it a little bit of visual interest, I guess, or something like that. Really, you can go as fine detailed or as not detailed as you feel like. It's really up to you. One thing that I can say is you probably want to stay away from like really hard straight lines if you can avoid it. So like even if your map has like a very straight coastline like this, like even that's not so bad because you got a little bit of wobble from the movement of my hand. But sometimes it's good to add a little bit or subtract a little bit here and there, right? You can subtract as well. But this is just a basic outline. It doesn't need to be perfect. We just want to get the shape. The biggest thing is we want to get the shape of the island so that we can get rid of the overlay, because we won't need that in the long run. All right. This is going to take me a little while, but we will get through it. I do expect that these videos since we're doing Worldpainter and stuff, are probably going to be a little slower paced. Worldpainter is just inherently kind of a slower kind of project, more thoughtful, not as action packed. Things don't happen as quickly. So, but I think it's interesting anyway, and a skill that I don't see a lot of people doing a lot with Worldpainter. So this is kind of an opportunity to share some knowledge, about something that I feel fairly knowledgeable about. So it's kind of fun. You can see I added a little bit extra to that little point. It seems like it's kind of the southernmost point of this island, so it felt like it needed something. Might clear some land out there eventually for like a little town. I don't know if we're gonna get to building towns and stuff in this series. I haven't decided if this is gonna be purely just Worldpainter stuff, or if we're actually gonna like do some in-game Minecraft stuff. So we will have to see. I know that we at least will be using Minecraft to visit these worlds as we go, and to tweak the minor details. The other important thing about this series that I don't think I've mentioned yet, but all of these maps are going to be available for download on my Patreon. So if you have suggestions for maps that you'd like to not only see being made, but also ones that you potentially might like to play on, make some suggestions, and it may be the case that we're able to make a map that it's kind of something that you've always wanted to see done, and then you could download it and enjoy it. Might be kind of fun. Or even better, you could learn, watch these videos, learn how to use Worldpainter, and make all sorts of your own maps. That would be even more awesome, in my opinion. But we will see. This is kind of an interesting little bit of land. We can see that this is really kind of a peninsula. You got this really deep bay here. I wonder what kind of terrain, what kind of biomes would be on a bit of land that pokes out like this, My brain says maybe like swampy marshland kind of stuff, but I'm not really sure. That might also be something we want to think about, is what is this world like? What part of the world is this island located in? Is it located in, is it a tropical island? Is it a, more of a like Mediterranean island? Who knows? We'll have to figure it out. You see we've got some hints of rivers around here. That's kind of interesting. We will learn how to make rivers too. It's going to be a lot of fun. All sorts of stuff. I may even learn some new stuff while we're doing this, That's kind of what makes this exciting, is I get to practice my skills and learn and improve just alongside everyone else. I am by no means great at this, but it is something that I very much enjoy doing, and passion is important. I may have chosen a map that is a little bit too large. I will be the first to admit it. This might be a little bit big, but at least it'll be an exciting first map. What should we call it? That's the other question. We need a name for this map, and sometimes the names become like more apparent as you work on it. These little projects kind of develop a life of their own sometimes, but sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes you have a really cool name and a concept, and you're able to build a map around that concept, around that. I think we might keep this little island, but I am going to push the coastline back just a little bit. That way, there's a little bit of separation. I don't actually know how far apart they are. Actually, we can measure. So so one way that I measure things while I'm working, again, at the bottom of my screen, if you look down here, you can see radius 44. And that means that the radius of my brush, this circle, is a 44 radius circle, which means the entire thing is double that. So this circle right now is 88 blocks across in any direction. So if I just kind of adjust it so it's the right size to fit in between these land masses, I can see, okay, this is radius 42. So that means the distance between the mainland and the island is about 84 blocks. That's pretty good. That's yeah, it's more than what, like 4 chunks, probably like a little more than 5 chunks. So that's pretty good. It's a pretty good distance. What we really don't want are just like islands that are separated by like really narrow canals. Those aren't as interesting to look at. Okay. So I am thinking that this upper section of this map is probably going to be a little bit softer. I think there aren't going to be as many tall mountains near the water. Because of that, we're going to end up with more beaches than cliffs. That's kind of one of the fun things about terrain, is that they're really, for the most part, right? All this is very general, but there are really only 2 main kinds of coastlines that you really see commonly: cliffs and beaches. And most coastlines, at least in the real world, are some, either some combination of those or, some variation on those ideas. There are some other things, but those I would say, are the most common. So a lot of the times you can create pretty nice islands just by dividing your coastlines up and deciding which parts are going to be beaches and which parts are going to be cliffs. Obviously, there are some guidelines there too. Cliffs have a tendency to show up in areas where you've got a lot of rock right near the water, where you have, maybe mountains, coastal mountains. You end up with cliffs and stuff and gravelly beaches. But in areas where you've got more room for the rock to erode down into the fine particles that make up sand, that's where you end up with, smoother beaches, I think. Something like that. I'm not actually knowledgeable about geology or geography or any of it, so, but I work with what I got, so. This is going to be an interesting bay, too. This is very narrow. Let's see exactly how narrow. What is this, 40? So this is, again, like, it's a little bit smaller. Maybe like 72 or so. That's pretty small. Still large enough for a ship, though. That's good. Let's see here. Let's also, before we forget, want to outline this little island. Can't use the flat brush for that, though. Whenever you start a new landmass, you have to start with the razor lower, and then you can transition to the flatten tool. Alternatively, I guess you could connect it to the mainland with the flatten tool. Like, you could draw this out and then lower it back down, but it seems like a lot more effort than just using the raise and lower tool again. This island is pretty small. I don't imagine it'll have much on it. Maybe just some trees, couple big rocks or something like that. Nothing huge. Although it could be like, maybe like a nice place for like a little outpost. You could put like a lighthouse or something out here. Might be kind of fun. Let's make this brush a little bit bigger so we can fill this in. Nice. And at this point, this is a flat mess, but we're not too worried about it, because we're going to take care of that later on as we go. All right. This is a very interesting overall shape. I think that's this part of the map making is kind of my favorite part. I really enjoy, just while I'm doing this mindless process of like tracing, just kind of thinking about what the map might be like, and what kind of people live on this island. I don't know. It is an interesting shape, though. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of places that I think we could include some details of storytelling. It's amazing how much story you can tell with just the shape of land. You know, I mean, I think it's a common misconception that in order to tell stories and to to build lore, that it has to be something where it has to include people. It has to include, decisions that people make. But I think especially in, in a genre of creation like this, where it's like fantasy world building, where, you've got pantheons of gods that are sort of like the Greek gods that are, they squabble amongst themselves just like the humans, right? And I think that when you have great forces like that that are not creatures, that you can actually tell a lot of story with the terrain. I mean, this mountain is pointy because this great god came and chiseled the peak into a point because he wanted it to be pointy, right? These are stories that you can tell without there even being people, and that's kind of fun. And then you have to ask your questions like, okay, so this god chiseled the peak into a point. Why did he do that? What was his reasoning? Did he do it because, maybe I don't know, maybe he was in love with a mortal, and the mortal died, and chiseling the peak into a point was, maybe he was gonna try and unalive himself or something. I don't know, out of despair and grief. Who knows? Or maybe he did it. Maybe he was chiseling it into, the shape of a sword because, he's very proud of one of his followers who, has mastered the art of swordcraft and saved, the world, or saved a city or whatever with a sword, dedicated to this god. Who knows? There are a lot of possibilities. The sky is really the limit. Maybe there isn't a reason. Maybe it's just geography. Maybe that's just the way the mountain looks, Maybe that's just the way the mountain looks, and maybe that's the legend that gets created by people after they move to this area. Maybe they say that the god chiseled it into a point because whatever reason. It doesn't have to be true, but that's still an interesting story. It's interesting. It's culture building. Maybe the people revere that mountain. Maybe it's a really important one. Maybe that mountain, because of its weird pointy shape, maybe it resonates in the wind when the winds blow hard. And so the townsfolk know that when the mountain cries out with its whistling, the whistling sound of the wind through the peaks, that they know that a storm is coming. And so the mountain is protecting them by warning them of the imposing storm, right? I don't know. There's a lot of cool things. And anyone who has spent any significant amount of time hanging around this channel or around me knows that I like telling stories. It's kind of my favorite thing to do, I think. Okay. Connected up our output. Look at that. You only had to listen to me ramble for like 30 minutes. Zoom out a little bit. Alright. This is a pretty good start. We've got some space to work with. Let's go ahead and fill this in. So for this inner part, we don't care about the edges. We don't need the edges to be soft like we did out here. We just want to get this filled in, and we want it to be at this height of 10. So we're going to leave the at or below mask on. We're going to switch this brush to a much harder brush. I do love telling stories. It's to the point of it being an issue sometimes. But we'll use this hard edge brush, and we are just going to raise this all up. Eventually this will hit 10. And then we can use the flatten brush, and we can pull this out to the edges. So the big thing we don't want to do is we do not want to do like this, because now we've got this hard edge right here, and that's going to be really hard to get rid of as we're smoothing the edge. So we really just want to make sure that we're coloring inside the lines. This is what we practiced for in kindergarten. Color inside the lines. I know that these days, I think the thought is that kids should learn not to color within the lines and be individuals, which I agree with. But for Worldpainter, we want to color inside the lines. In fact, in Worldpainter, half of the creativity is making sure that we color inside the lines in some respects. It's good to be creative, but it's also good to make sure that we're creative in a way that makes sense and is useful. Let's see. Thankfully, this part of the process is a lot faster than the rest of it. Really, the only parts where we need to get really granular are kind of on these edges. Just want to make sure that we connect them up in a way that makes sense without hitting the outside. Oops. Without hitting the outside edge too much. All right. Let's see, I think I might just go around the outside edge of this with this kind of smaller brush, and then we'll get the big inner parts later with a bigger one. We do want to make sure that we get all this, because again, if we leave any gaps, that means we're going to have holes in the ground that are going to look mighty unsightly, is a polite way of putting it, I suppose. But they look real bad. It's like those adult coloring books, kind of. That's how I think of it. It's therapeutic. I feel like everyone could benefit from some mindless Worldpainter kind of stuff from time to time. Because I feel like, especially Worldpainter, like there's a lot of parts of this process that you don't have to think greatly about. In fact, there are parts of this process that I would argue are improved by people not thinking too much about them, not overthinking it. Sometimes you just gotta let the shape of the island do what it's gonna do, and just be okay with the results, and work with what you got. And sometimes I think those limitations on our creativity, not having, complete control and complete ability to do everything exactly the way you want to do it, sometimes that's leads to more interesting and more natural looking results. Not everything in the real world makes sense. There's a whole lot of terrain in the real world that you look at and you're like, there's no way that that's actually how that formed. For instance, there are crystals that form in perfect, perfect cubes and perfect other, platonic solids, kind of things. And I think that's really interesting. You look at a piece of pyrite, which pyrite forms these nice little cubes that are nearly perfect looking. They definitely look machined and not natural, but it's just the way the world works, and sometimes that's just how it goes. Makes things interesting. It's when you start using the detailing brushes that I become a bit stressed. Yeah, I get that. But I think the most important part of like detailing and stuff is to identify what parts of your map you really care about. Like, this has to be a particular way, right? I need these mountains must be this particular shape because X reason, and then to just kind of let everything else fall into place. Which I admit that can be, letting go like that is hard to do, but once you identify, this is a part of the map that I'm really concerned about, this is something that I had specific plans for, but this part of the map over here, I didn't really have specific plans. I don't really know what's going to go there. Letting those parts that you don't know just get filled in however they're going to get filled in, and then working with what you got there, that's going to be, in my opinion, the key to success. Plan for what you can plan for, but be flexible and willing to make adjustments when, for the things that you don't have plans for. Because trying to have a plan for everything is an exercise in making yourself crazy. That's definitely, when I started doing Worldpainter stuff, I wanted everything to be planned out and perfect. I wanted this mountain to have this particular shape. I had reference images for like how I wanted mountain ranges to connect up and stuff. And the reality of the situation is, even if you get it right, even if you are able to make the mountains connect up in that one particular way, it may not end up being what you want, you know, and it turns out that having that much structure can sometimes take away some of the creativity. Sometimes having to work, work within a rule set, you know, or a set of limitations, even if they're frustrating limitations, can be healthy. You know, it can help you make more creative decisions by being limited in what you're allowed to do. Food for thought, I guess. All right. This is looking pretty good so far. I'm really interested to see how these bays. We've got two kind of big, kind of long, narrow bays too. Kind of interested how those will end up working out. Hopefully they end up looking good. Who knows? But that's kind of the other nice thing about Worldpainter is that if we get to a point where we look at these bays and we're like, oh, that's become too narrow and it no longer works, I don't like it. Guess what? We can get rid of it, or we can redo it. There's nothing final about these maps. You can always come back and make adjustments, make whatever changes you want to make. You know, and in that respect, I feel like it's a little bit less stressful than other creative pursuits. You know, there are some things that you do that you get one shot. You know, and if it doesn't work out, then you kind of got to live with it. You know, for me, baking and cooking and stuff kind of come to mind as sort of, you know, art forms in their own way. But when you're baking and stuff, you know, if you measure the ingredients wrong, or you put things together, you don't follow the recipe correctly, and you don't use the right tool or whatever, that could be it. You could have just wasted ingredients or whatever, because it's possible that your recipe now just doesn't work and you have to start over in order to, you'd have to do it again. But Worldpainter and kind of Minecraft in general are fairly forgiving in terms of creativity. Particularly, you know, I mean, Worldpainter is pretty much like a very simple painting app. It reminds me in a lot of ways of like Microsoft Paint. But obviously the results are far more exciting than Microsoft Paint. Although Microsoft Paint is pretty cool. It's one of my favorite programs. Which seems silly, but I struggle with the really big photo editing utilities, things like Photoshop and stuff. I'm learning how to use GIMP, and I'm slowly becoming accustomed to how that works. But I admit there's a lot of things that I still do with Microsoft Paint that I probably could do much more quickly if I had more knowledge. One day we'll spend some time learning how to do more official photo editing stuff. Because I do end up, these days, especially with making videos and whatnot, streaming, I do end up doing a bit of photo editing. Okay. Looks like we're pretty much done with the outline. So we can turn off the overlay. And here we go. This is our island. Kind of an interesting shape. Trying to see if there are any parts in particular that I don't like. Because if I'm going to change big portions of the island, now is the time to be doing that. And honestly, I don't feel like there's anything here that I can't work with. You know, areas where I'm like, oh, that just looks straight up bad. I can see some areas where rivers are going to intersect with water. Rivers are going to flow down from the mountains. You see, like, here, this is definitely the mouth of a river. This could also be one, maybe. Possibly here, these little divots. I would say this is probably the mouth of a river. Probably somewhere along the inside of this curve. Definitely somewhere here. Maybe up here and up here. It's hard to say though. But yeah. So next what we're going to do is we're going to work on refining the edge. So right now the edge is a little bit what I call soft. It's got a lot of, because we're using a brush that has a round edge, it means that everything is kind of lumpy and there aren't any sharp points anywhere. We don't necessarily want a lot of sharp points, but it's good to have the option of having sharp points. We also want to kind of define where are the beaches and where are the cliffs. Like we were talking about earlier, this is an essential part of kind of figuring out your coastlines. So we've got a few tools that we can use. For beaches and stuff, turn it off again, we can turn our intensity down to like 50 or whatever. We can use a softer brush, maybe this linear one. And the nice thing about this flatten tool is that it flattens in both directions. It flattens upwards and it flattens downwards. So if I were to click up here, you can see that it kind of smooths this area from up here down to this bottom area. If I click somewhere in the middle, it's going to lower this top area and raise the bottom area. You can see how that works. And if we do a big enough brush, we can end up with some kind of softer lines. Stuff like this can be good for creating, if I wanted a beach here, this is a very nice gradual beach. Another thing we can do is we can use brushes. So in this case, I've got like cliff brushes. And what we can do is we can bring these edges up. And the longer we hold it, the more vertical these cliffs are going to look. Let's see if we can take a zoom in on this. Well, it's very small and hard to see. So see if we can get the angle right. There we go. It's kind of hard to see. We do have some cliffs going on right there. So we're basically just going to go around, draw some cliffs in, and whatever isn't cliffs will naturally become beaches. So I think we got cliffs here, probably some here. We can also, we can make the brushes bigger. We can rotate it. So making the brushes bigger or smaller is just me scrolling the scroll wheel on my mouse. In order to rotate it around like this, we can hold the Alt key on the keyboard and scroll the scroll wheel, and that will rotate it left and right. So they're very useful tools. We can use our big soft brush to kind of feather this. So this looks like it's going to be some sort of beach, right? Bring these edges up a little bit straighter. And if we look at this, kind of turn it so we can see it from a front-on view, you can see that what we created is, we've got kind of a gentle slope up. This would probably be sand, right? And then around it, we've got some kind of taller, sharper, steep cliffs. We could have taller ones, we could have steeper ones if we wanted, but for now, this is a good start. So we'll go around and do that. We don't have to use just these cliff brushes. I've got a lot of different brushes. I don't remember where most of them came from. These ones, I believe, are from a pack, Evmen. That was like it might still be. I haven't really looked at brushes in recent memory, but these might still be some of the better brushes. I believe if you search for like Evmen brushes on Google, you should be able to download them. I can't remember if I paid money or not, but if I did pay money, it wasn't a lot of money. It wasn't too bad. You can make do with just a handful of brushes. You really don't need that many, but you probably do want to get away from these basic ones. I've seen people who can do mountains with this stuff, but it's really hard to do. In my opinion, it's usually a better option just to download a brush pack from somewhere. There are quite a few of them. Most of them are, pretty easy to use, not very expensive, that sort of thing. Let's kind of edit some of this and bring this back up. We can also adjust the intensity. So if we turn the intensity really up, you can see that this forms like steeper cliffs with a harder edge. more vertical drop. And if we turn this way down, we end up with very soft edges with gentle slopes. That's kind of interesting. I kind of like that. Maybe we'll leave it. Okay, so we're just going to go around. We're going to use some of these brushes just to shape this coastline a little bit. I really don't have any particular ideas about what I want any of this to look like, so I'm just going to play around with it until we have a shape that we like. We'll check it a few times with the 3D viewer. We might even go and take a peek at it in game. Who knows? There's also some of this it's hard to, you have to use your imagination a little bit, because all of this is grass right now. All of it's going to look a little funny, not quite right. But once we add terrain and stuff, you'll notice that it becomes a lot more, it'll look a lot more real. Let's turn our intensity up a little bit. Bring this out. Want that to be a pretty hard line, I think. Let's see, what other brushes do we have? I don't actually know what a lot of these brushes look like. A lot of what I do is kind of trial and error. I'll place something down and see if it looks nice, if it's something that I like. If it's not, then I will leave it be. But if it is, then I can use it. There's this Mesa brush that for whatever reason, I really like using. It's got like a very sharp edge that kind of looks nice and sometimes. Let's see. Okay. It's pretty nice. These are some nice clips right here. The other thing that we can do to make interesting clips is we can change this at or below. We change this to like 5 instead of 10. Now when we raise it, it'll stop at 5. So you can see we can end up with like kind of terraced cliffs. We can get a good view. Yeah. So if you look, we've got flat area up here, then a little bit of downwards rubble stuff, and then another flat area down at 5. So we can have as many levels of terrace as we like. Sometimes this is helpful if we make this below water level, but in a shallow way. So like right now, the depth of this water is down to -20, but if we make this like -5, right? This is still below water, and we can create kind of like a rocky shelf. So you can make some. Let's see. Let's go back to our raise and lower tool. But yeah, we can make some areas off the coastline that have shallow water that just kind of drop off as we get deeper. It's kind of fun sometimes. This number is fun to play around with. We could go higher than our natural cliffs. We could bring something up like this. So if we look at this in game, or not in game, but in the 3D view, we can see, we got a little bit of variation. You can't see the stuff under the water, unfortunately. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think there's a way to get rid of the water in the 3D. But we can open this up in game and take a look at some point. But I'm going to do a little bit of this coastline now. And then we'll open it up in Minecraft, see what it looks like, see if there are changes we want to make. And we'll just kind of keep working with it. No, that's not what this needs to say. 10. Why is this still going up to 15? Let's see here. At or below. I think it's just a glitch. There we go. I would like to keep this mostly kind of down towards the neutral 10 if we can. Because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building this terrain in layers. So we're going to do coastlines and beaches and stuff. We're going to add kind of what I call the highlands, which are kind of just anything that's kind of up above sea level, but still relatively flat, small hills, and then mountains above that. So let's go ahead and add a little bit here. Bring this edge up. We can also do, these are kind of what I would call like a sea stack. I'm not sure if we'll be able to see it here. But we can kind of see it. You can see we end up with these little rocks that stick up out of the water. That's kind of fun. We can also, at some point, I'll show you how this is done. But we can make arches, sea arches. So maybe we'll make one off of this coast right here. And really all you got to do is just drag out a little piece of the coast. And then we'll add like a tunnel that goes underneath it. And that'll form like a little arch. Kind of fun. Okay. Kind of lower some of this down and make a little bay. This feels like it needs to be fairly rocky. Looks like a rocky coastline. Maybe add some little rocks here. And really just the level of detail that you get with these is really just kind of, it's up to you, right? It's whatever you want. If you want this to be, you know, a really rocky coastline, you can go through and add lots of little rocks. If you want like a fairly smooth, you know, you want a picturesque, you know, white sand beach coastline, you could do that too, you know. We're gonna do this. This will add some roughness and some little rocks that poke out of the water just a little bit. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, some of those might be a little bit tall. Maybe we'll try this a little bit with a little bit less intensity, huh? There we go. How's that? Yeah, that's pretty good. We just want a few little rocks. Nothing too crazy. Does this even break the surface? It does not. Okay, yeah. Here we go. Just a little bit. Just for some texture. Let's see. What else do we want to include along this coastline? You can see that, like, this is going to take a while, right? We've done this little section right here. And there's so much more to finish just on this, even on this one small island. This is a time-consuming process. But if you take the time to do it, the results are, in my opinion, pretty worth it. Let's do like one of these. I think this needs to be kind of a softer beach. Kind of what it feels like. Not use that brush though. Let's use like a hill brush. Hills, these hill brushes I tend to find are like kind of softer. You end up with, you know, more gradual curves. We can also use our smoothing tool, by the way. Especially for the beaches. The last thing you want are like hard lines on sand. The hard lines are okay on the rocks, but on the sandy bits, you really want it to be pretty darn smooth. Okay, this is looking interesting. Let's go back to, we can still use this hill brush, I think. Maybe just add a little bit more over here. Yeah, that'll come up really nice up against that edge. And then maybe just a little flat part here that blends in with the rest of this. I'm going to bring this forward as well. Nice. Okay, what else can we add? Canyons. We'll go back to cliffs. Do some stuff here. It's an interesting shape. Not really sure what I'm looking at there. Huh. Wonder what that looks like. Let's see. Where'd it go? Oh, I've completely lost my bearings. Here we go. It's kind of interesting. Let's rotate it one more time. Those are some very steep cliffs. Okay. That'll work, though, I think. Alright. Let's see. And of course, if anyone has any questions while this is happening, I have a tendency to talk a lot. I know that. So if you do have any questions and it feels like you're not able to squeeze them in, please just let me know. I'm more than happy to answer any and all questions. I'm a talker. Let's see. Some of these miscellaneous ones. I know this one looks kind of interesting. And the nice thing is that, for the most part, anything can be a cliff, as long as you're using like a height mask to prevent it from being like a pointy mountain. It's also important to note that we can also subtract from the terrain. If we're gonna do that, we want to make sure that we go at or above -20, just so we don't poke too many holes in the bottom of the land like this. So like this, I know this could be kind of a interesting little beach area. Oh yeah, that could be really interesting. Huh. And I think we build up kind of cliffs along here and along here, and then this is just kind of a shallow bowl. Kind of like that. Smooth it out a little bit. Yeah, that'll be something different. Let's grab our mesa brush. Go like that, and then maybe something like that, and then we turn the intensity down. Okay, this is promising. Okay, that's weird. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Let's lower this down to like 7. Add some little, I don't know what you call these, but like little terraces, I guess. Turn the intensity up a little bit. Back to a cliff brush. I think this needs a little bit of help right here. Yeah. Okay, we'll bring this back up to like 10. Okay, let's add a few more little sea stacks and rocky outcroppings. I think that'll really, in particular, feel like there should be something kind of off of here. Maybe a couple little ones here. Maybe something kind of here. That could be kind of fun. Let's see, we'll grab our outcroppings brush down here. Just add a few more. Gotta turn this intensity way down now. Let's see what that looks like. That does not break the surface. And that breaks the surface. Okay, yeah, we got some little artifacts. Nice. We can use it at bigger scales with like a softer intensity to kind of add almost like coral reef kind of stuff. You see it'll texture the sea floor and add some nice little bits and bobs, islands and whatnot. I think kind of rotate this like this. Use this to create just some little rocks and stuff off the shore. Nice. a few more kind of... I don't like that. You know what? Let's rotate it a little bit. There we go. We just got stuff poking up over the water. That's really all I wanted. Little bits here. This stuff underwater doesn't matter so much, but I don't know. It just adds a little bit of flavor. Okay, let's add a few more little individual cliffs. Little sea stacks and whatnot. I think this could be extended out. Turn this up a little bit. I think we'll do another sea, what do you call those? Sea arches kind of here. Kind of subtract a little bit from these little sides. Get a little bit narrower. That'll be nice. Let's add some cliffs over here. I think maybe we'll use mesas. There we go. And I think let's turn this up to like 15. A little bit more right there. Okay. This is good. We're doing a little bit more than I anticipated, but okay. Well, this is pretty cool. Let's go ahead and export this and take a look at it in game, because I think that we're kind of at the limitations of what the 3D view can offer us in terms of like being able to understand what our map currently looks like. This is good, but I don't think it's enough for us to really be able to tell, can we move on from this section, or does this still need, are there adjustments, big adjustments that need to be made? If we were to keep going and just do more coastline without checking this, we'd probably be okay in most cases, but we have to be a little bit careful because, if there's something like, say, this whole thing that I did here just doesn't work and I need to redo it, that could have implications for what happens on the rest of the coastline. So it's good to do it in little pieces, go back frequently to look at what you're doing and make decisions about whether or not it's what you want. And that's going to be really helpful. The other thing I'm going to do before I export this little section of map and we take a look at it is I'm going to add a little bit of terrain. I'm going to paint a little bit of the terrain with some very, very basic colors, just because everything looks worse when it's made out of dirt and grass. When we add a little bit of stone in there, this won't be the final color, but the little bit of stone that we add is going to help us see what parts are steep and which parts are not steep. So let's go to terrain. We're going to use just the basic default built-in stuff for right now. So we'll probably start with, I think we'll start with tough. Tough is a good starting block. So we're going to go to our paintbrush or our pencil tool right now. We are going to, do the terrain. Let's see. For this, we're going to use an angle mask. So we've got our little mask settings. You can see that I've turned off adder above and adder below. Or rather, when I switch the brush, it automatically switches those. And we're going to go down here to above and below. And you can see there's a degrees thing down here. You probably actually can't see because the screen is very small. But you can believe me that this says degrees. We're going to say above. Above 45 degrees is a good starting point. So this is what this is doing is Worldpainter calculates at any given point on this map, what is the angle of that little section of map? Is it trending like it's a steep cliff, it's going upwards? Is it really flat, like it's just a horizontal plane? And it makes decisions about all the different pixels on this map. So when we start painting, when we say above 45 degrees, this is only going to affect blocks. We're only going to turn blocks into stone from grass if they are above, if they are on a trend line of above 45 degrees, which is, 45 degree angle is right in between straight up and down and straight side to side. So it's kind of a good place. when we do when we do this painting stuff in other settings, what we'll probably end up doing is we'll create our own terrains, and we'll have more of them. We'll have a gradient that goes from least steep to most steep. But for this, we'll actually just do just the one layer just to give us a brief overview. We actually might do two. I think we'll do tough and then we'll do rock. Before I do that though, we actually have to do one other thing, is paint a sand layer. I typically go for kind of white sand beaches, just kind of classic. I know that realistically, these beaches would probably be like gravel, but it just doesn't look as nice in Minecraft, so we're going to do regular sandy beaches. So for this, we actually won't use an angle mask. For this, we basically want the sand to be underwater and then a little bit up onto the land. So I'm going to say probably about 5 or 6 blocks. So we know that land starts at 1. So if we bring this at or below up to 7, that means that we're going to paint anything that is below Y level 7, which is going to be kind of 10, 9, 8, 7. So from here downwards is going to be sand. Now this is also going to paint the bottom part of our cliffs into sand, which is okay because when we come back, we're going to do the cliffs with the degree brush. So it matters less. So let's go ahead and paint this. We're also going to click this button that says feather. What this means is that if we don't click feather, you can see it's going to be sand is going to be a hard line like that. If we do click feather, it'll add a little bit of sand in places that actually, in order to make the feather work, we have to use the spray can, I think. Yeah, so it'll do, you can see that this area up here is 10, but it's still getting a little bit of sand because we feathered it. It's a little bit too intense. We'll probably do, we don't want that much feathering, actually. I think we'll do this for right now. And then we will come back with the other brush. Okay, then we'll add a little bit of feathering. Change this to 5 with the feather. Change this to this. Turn the intensity down. Now we can add just a little bit. You see it's replacing just a little bit of the grass with the sand. Just so that we get a little bit of a softer edge. So it's not like a hard line where sand just stops happening. Which in some places, sand just stopping in a hard line is realistic. But these smooth gradual breaches, I feel like they give way to grass. It's kind of the way I see it happen. At least the way I imagine it happening in real life. Who knows though? A little bit of sand. And again, this is not permanent. We're gonna repaint this 1,000 times before we're done with this. This is really just to look at, just to make it pretty. Okay, we're gonna come back with our brush. We're gonna go to tough. We're going to turn off this thing. We're going to turn on our angle mask. All right, and it doesn't look like it's making a lot of difference, but I can assure you that there are. Oh, it would also help if we had like the full brush. Because we're only putting this on the really steep parts, which you can't see in the top-down view. Let's see. You actually prefer gravel beaches? Yeah. I don't know. I can't get on board with that, but to each their own, you know? So above 45, we'll make this one above 60, I guess. Doesn't matter that much. We just want a little bit of highlight. Okay. Should we do our little C-stacks too really quick? Yeah, let's do the C-stacks. It's a pretty short thing. We're going to go to layers. So for a C-stack, it's not a C-stack, it's a C-arch. To do a C-arch, this is a pretty common technique, I think, for Worldpainter. Essentially, we're going to make a long point that sticks out into the water that's kind of like candy bar shaped. And then we're just going to carve a little arch tunnel underneath it. So, actually, you know what? I can do this. Let me show you guys. Okay, so sea arches. Let's add some water. There's our water. The way that sea arches work is you have, make it wider. You have, this is the water line, right? Everything below this is water. Water, 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 water. For the land, what we do is we carve kind of a funny cliff that looks like this. And this is mainland. And this is ocean. Oops. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use Worldpainter. We're going to create a cave layer. And we are going to just make a cave that goes like this. Boop. And as you can see, that forms, we've got land, we have a little arch, and then we have a rock that sticks up. That's a sea arch. That's it. That's literally it. And what happens in the real world is that waves crash against this and it slowly erode away this section right here to form an arch. And eventually the entire arch erodes away. And what you're left with is just something on the land and then something out in the water. And this is a sea stack. So sea stacks and sea arches are just different stages of the same life cycle. But to make one of these, pretty simple. We're going to go to our layers tab over here. We're going to click on the plus sign at the bottom to add a custom layer. There's a lot of options here. You can see one of them says cave tunnel layer. That's the one we want to select. We know that the default height of our land is 10. And we know the default height of our sea floor is about -20. So we'll use those numbers in order to create an arch that doesn't quite break through the top of this. So ceiling level, we want to make it less than 10. And how much less than 10 depends on how thick of an arch you want. Given that this is only 10 blocks tall to begin with, I would say we probably want like a level of like 7. It's probably a good height. We can say the absolute maximum would be like 8 because we don't want it to break through the ceiling. Absolute minimum is going to be -20 because we don't want it to break through the floor. You can have a little bit of variation, but honestly that's not a particularly interesting or useful thing right now. For material, we can do a material. We can do like, this is for the ceiling, so this would be rock. I think we'll use tough though, because I think the rock layer has gravel maybe in it. Let's just use tough. Tough. That's fine. Floor. This is going to be at, we want it to be underwater so that this thing actually touches the water. And I would put this at about -15 or so. We might have to adjust that a little bit as we go. We'll add a little bit of variation, maybe like 2. Actually, we'll make this scale, roughness. Don't need to worry about that too much. Material. We're also going to make this tough. Walls are also going to be tough. The bottom width and the top width, we can make this bottom width kind of largish. We can make it like 5. And the top width we can make, actually 4 is probably fine there. We don't need to worry about this. We can flood the tunnel at at 0, which is where our water level is. And I think that'll work. All we need to do now is paint this tunnel layer kind of through here. And also over through here. And I will be right back. My cat is making a weird noise. One more. Okay, I'm back. My cat, ladies and gentlemen, was screaming at a receipt that fell fell on the floor. She was very frightened, and so she screamed at it, and that's a thing. I don't know. She's a weirdo. So we'll draw that one there. We'll draw this one here. We'll probably have to adjust those, but might be kind of fun for right now. You can also use these cave layers to carve out like overhangs if you want really, really kind of overhanging cliffs. It's sometimes kind of fun. Yeah, I think this is all we need for right now. Let's take a look at it in game. We'll kind of zoom out of this. So this is a very useful tool for Worldpainter. Is the fact that I can export this world. I can export the entire thing, 5,000 by 5,000, but I don't have to export the entire thing if I don't want to. And when I'm checking little individual areas like this, there's no reason for me to export this when I could just export this, right? So what we could do is we can go up here to this button. This button up here next to the save button says export the world. We can actually click on this button down here at the bottom that says test export. First of all, we have to give it a name. That's fine. Worldpainter Adventures, game mode creative. Set it to peaceful. We want to edit this stuff really quick. This is fine. Border, we're going to put water. We're going to have the water at 0. We'll have an endless border, just so that we don't have to worry about the default generation. We want to make sure that we don't have any of this stuff, that none of this gets placed. We don't need to worry about resources right now. That'll be for the final export. This seems all good. We're going to click test export. We're going to say export a subset of tiles. And this is going to open this little dialog box that lets us choose which tiles. So we're just going to grab the ones that we want. Something like, maybe like this. Seems pretty good. We can also set our spawn. So we'll move it until you can see the crosshairs right here. That's where our spawn is going to be. So we're going to set the spawn, I don't know, right here. So we'll say set spawn. And I think this is everything we want to export. So let's go ahead and click OK. Click export. And it'll wait for a second while it thinks about that and figures it out. There it goes. That's pretty quick. Okay, cool. So let's... Oh, one last thing. This is very important because this has burned me so many times. We always want to click this save button. I have autosave turned off, but realistically you should have autosave turned on. The reason I have it turned off is because the main Worldpainter project that I'm working on is a country. It's 50,000 blocks by 50,000 blocks. That thing takes 5 to 10 minutes to save. So if I have autosave on, I have to sit there for 5 to 10 minutes every time, which is not ideal. For a map this small, this saves like a couple of seconds. So it is a good idea to save often and save frequently, because I cannot tell you how many times I have forgotten to save and things have gone wrong, and yeah, it's bad. We don't want that. Okay, Worldpainter Adventures. Let's take a look at this. Ah, yes. Very flat. Let's go ahead and get into spectator mode. We'll also change the time. Oh, there we go. Starting to wonder where the island was. Okay, let's take a look at our cliffs. So yeah, this mixture of blocks is not my favorite. Not a big fan of the cobblestone and regular stone. Doesn't look so nice. But it does a good job of indicating where these things are going to be. You can see the steep parts are cliffs and the smooth parts are sand. That's exactly what we were looking for. This sand actually looks very nice. It's got a nice smooth transition into the water. These rocky bits are interesting. I actually kind of like these. Yeah, that's not bad. I would turn on my shaders, but my computer has been having some issues lately, and I'm a little bit nervous. Looks like we might not have exported. This is where the tunnel would have been, but I don't I don't see a tunnel. That indicates to me we may have accidentally not exported that layer. That's fine. This is a little bit, like, kind of square, too. Not the worst. Honestly, not bad, but, like, I would like it if it were a little bit softer up at this top edge, kind of like this. Remember, edits that I make right now in-game are not going to translate to the Worldpainter world. So, you know, don't change things by hand, expecting them to stay. Let's fly over here. I think this will look nice once we've got the area carved out underneath it, as long as it's the size that I think it is, which remains to be seen. This is kind of interesting too. Very rocky. But I kind of like it. Yeah, it's not too bad. Let's fly over here and take a look at some of this coastline over here. But yeah, this is what the process looks like. It's a lot of doing some Worldpainter stuff and then stopping and looking at the Worldpainter stuff. It's very hard to see underwater. But you can see we've got some little landform things underwater. It's another one of our beaches. It's kind of nice. This is bad. This is rough and bad. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to smooth that part out. That's something we can... Let's see, it's like the second beach on that southern side, it looks like. So we'll have to address that, take a look at it again. Let's see, we've got another little sort of enclosed cove area. I like this cliff in the middle. This is neat. I like that a lot. With better block choices, this will look really nice. It is very deep here, though. That goes quite a ways down. Could be good, though. You could definitely fit a boat in here. This I don't know about. This would be something that I'd have to manually paint back to grass after I did the big sweeping sand stuff, which is not hard to do, but it is, you can see, lots of individual blocks, which is bad. So we'll need to clean that up, smooth it out a little bit. What else we got? These rocks look nice. I think just if they were rock instead of sand, that would be the big thing there. This little shelf is kind of nice, this shallower area. These cliffs are good. I like these. Yeah, overall, I'm actually pretty happy with this. Hey, it's Ruben. What's up? You're on late and or early? I don't know. What time is it? It's like 7:40. I have no idea what the time difference is, but welcome. Happy to have you. This is cool. Okay, I don't like the fact that these are like literally the same thing twice. Yeah, those shapes are like exactly identical. But this little cove is cute. And these rocks that stick up. Again, this would need to be grass, not sand. It's 9:13. Is that 9:13 in the morning or the evening? Sorry, I shouldn't be probably doxing you. I don't know. This is kind of cool too. I like this rock that I added. That's a good rock. I could see this being connected up. Maybe some tide pools kind of stuff. Ah, okay. Gotcha. I like how this drops off pretty suddenly too. It's very shallow and just a sudden drop off into the depths. Pretty cool. This looks pretty nice. I actually really like these little rock outcroppings that poke out of the water. This is one of my great criticisms of a lot of like Worldpainter stuff that I see done, or just map making in general, is that a lot of people don't take into account the fact that like terrain underwater is the same as terrain on top of water. There's no difference. If you take your map and you remove the water from it, for the most part, it should look fairly continuous. Like, there shouldn't be a big difference where the water line is. You shouldn't be able to tell where the water line is just by looking at it. Because, you know, like mountains, like islands, like Hawaii, right? Hawaii, the islands are just mountains that come out of the seafloor. And what we're seeing, the part that we call the island, is really just the tops of the mountains that poke out of the water. But in reality, if we drained all the water around Hawaii, guess what? It's just a bunch of mountains, just like any other mountain range. Maybe a little bit smoothed out because of the, you know, the motion of the waves and everything, and, you know, things get ground down and smoothed down when you're underwater. But for the most part, the base geology of it all should not change too much. You can see very clearly, you know, this is where we did stuff with brushes and we made cliffs. This over here, this is what we started out with. This is the terrain, you know, when we drew the outline of the island. It's very smooth, very flat. Not a whole lot of anything. Kind of boring. But as we get over here, it gets a little more interesting. Everyone's used 24-hour time. That's fair. I don't use 24-hour time because I'm not cool enough, I guess. I'm stuck on the double 12-hour clock, just like most plebeians out there. I'm kind of wondering if I can turn my shaders on for a second, but I'm kind of nervous it's gonna crash things, just because I have so much stuff running right now. Maybe if I held very still, I don't know. I think we won't risk it for the moment. This is kind of cool. I feel like this would be a good spot to have another little arch. Yeah, we could add a little arch there. But yeah, this is what terrain looks like when we draw it. You can see that the actual terrain of the land itself is super flat, right? You can see that, you know, there's not much going on up here. And that's okay, because we're just doing coastlines. The coastlines look pretty good. I think that we've done a fairly good job of making this interesting. Catch you later, Ruben. Good luck with your studying and breakfast and whatnot. Yeah. Is this the best terrain I've ever made? Probably not. Is it pretty good? I think so. I think it looks pretty nice. It's definitely a good start. So now what we want to do is we want to identify areas where we have issues and then go back and fix them. So one of the issues that I identified early on was that I accidentally did not export that pave layer that I made to make the sea arches. Or there's something wrong with it that's making it not work. So that's something I need to fix. So what we can do is we can open up our handy dandy note editing software. Notepad works. And we could say fix pave layer, can't spell, for sea arches. That's a thing that we need to do. What else? What are some other things? I do wonder if some of these are a little bit flat on top, but I think that's something that will kind of get fixed as we go. I'm not too worried about that. This was all pretty okay. Let's see. Oh, I had some weird areas where we've got sand on top of these little things that should be rocks, and some sand on top of these little plateau areas. So maybe we'll make a note to adjust sand layers. It works. Maybe I spelled adjust correctly. That might help. Yeah, so like areas like this, I think that should be grass. I also think I want to smooth. We'll say, we'll call them terraces. We want to smooth these terraces out. Ideally, I don't want there to be all these like single individual missing blocks and stuff. It looks really messy. Hitting that with a smooth brush is gonna just instantly solve that issue. I like this. This looks good. I think that realistically, this sort of shelf would not be made out of sand. The shelf would probably be rock, but not something we need to worry about too much right now. What else? I liked all of this. I felt like this was pretty good. A few little bits that are repeating. Yeah, actually, I don't have an issue with that. This is another C arch that needs to be fixed. Oh, there was that little C arch that I wanted to add right here. See if we can say, I don't know, add C arch to pocket. I don't know what we call that. I'm not even sure I'll be able to find it, but let's see. Add C arch to pocket area. Pocket cliff? Question mark? That seems like a good thing to do. And I think, yeah, those are some good adjustments we can make. Again, you know, this is not the final product, but we want to try to iron out as many of the issues as we can early on in this project, so that we don't have to worry about them later. The other thing that I like to do sometimes is try and get a picture of what this looks like, because my memory is not that great. I'm not going to remember what this looks like. There's a few little visual glitches, but nothing too crazy. So if I come up here, and I do have a, what's the mod called? It's the Bobby mod, I believe. It's a mod that you can install that basically just saves chunk data, so that you can have artificially increased render distance. Like, I'm not actually rendering all this. This stuff is just what my client remembers. It's stored client side on my computer. It remembers what that terrain over there looks like from the last time I was over there, and it just displays it as kind of an LOD sort of situation. Very useful for this sort of thing. A little bit intensive on computing. So tread with caution. I'm going to take a few pictures. This way we can reference them. We can come back and look at them and be like, oh yeah, that's what that looks. Super helpful. Plus, it's just kind of fun, you know, at the end of a project to be able to look back and be like, man, I wonder what it looked like when I was first starting, you know, and then to look at, wow, this is what it looks like now. It's changed so much. I've gotten so much better. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Cool. So we'll go back to Worldpainter. Let's see if we can implement some of these changes. Pull up our list of things. Cave layer for sea arches. So let's see what went wrong. Surface, custom layers. This one is being exported. Here we go. Do not export underground features. So I accidentally had that checked. So next time I need to make sure I don't check that, so that we do end up exporting the cave layer, because otherwise we won't have any caves. I also wanted to add a cave layer. I think this is the little pocket I was thinking of. Oops. Add a little bit of this here, just like that. Now let's get rid of this and make it a little bit smaller, maybe. Seems pretty good. And our other one was over here. That seems pretty good, honestly. I'm not gonna mess with that. We still don't know what they look like because it didn't work, but what were some other things? So we took care of this. I'm gonna delete it from my we fixed that. We wanted to adjust the sand layers. Yeah, so this I didn't want really to be sand. And I remember this was also, the other thing we wanted to fix was smooth them out, because they were a little rough. It's a pretty easy fix. Just grab a smoother brush. And you literally just click a few times just to smooth all that. I don't remember where else there were issues with that. I think along there. And I think also on top of this guy, we wanted just a little bit of smoothing. And a little bit around the edges of this. Yeah. Just to round those out. Tiny bit. Okay, that should be pretty good. We won't worry about the terrain too much because this is something we'll have to remember to do the next time we export. Um, yeah, I think I'm gonna kind of wrap the stream up here because we're going on about 2 hours. Hopefully this was entertaining or informational or something like that. Maybe we will export it one more time with the changes just to see if I kind of just want to see what the sea arches look like. Yeah, let's export it one more time so we can show you how that works again. So if we leave this name the same, it's going to overwrite our last world, which I'm okay with right now because the old world is just it's useless now that I have this one. But if you did want to keep all variations of the world, then you'd want to go in here to the general and change this name each time. For me, we've still got the same tile selected, that's fine. Our spawn's in the same point, that's fine. We do want to export underground features. We don't need to worry about any of that. Let's go ahead and export it one more time, take a look. I know, 2 hours flies. Yeah, I take back what I said about this being like a 4 or 5 session series to get this island made. This is going to be a lot more than that. Okay. Let's go ahead and export it one more time. Oops, we don't want survival, we want spectator. Make it noon. Okay, let's see if we can find the CR. Oh, I see. It's way low down there. Okay. What height is this approximately? What? Try not to drown. What am I at? I think I might have clicked -7 for the height of the sea arch, not +7. I'm actually going to go ahead and fix that real quick. Oh, I see. It's fixed height above floor. That we should have had it in fixed level. That's what went wrong there. Okay. Floor is a fixed level of -15. A little bit of variation. That's fine. Yeah, let's make this like 5. Make that a little bit smooth. A little bit of roughness. Top width. I think we can decrease this to like 3. Bottom width of 5 is fine. We don't care about biome really right now. Level 0, flood, tunnels. We'll call this sea arches. And maybe we'll change the color. Make it, I don't know, like a deep blue. How's that? Because that might not be deep enough. Really dark blue. That might work. Oops. Okay. And then just make sure that fixed level, yes. Floor layers. We could add things to these, but we won't do that yet. Let's try exporting one more time. Test export. Good. Okay. Really just want to see these sea arches, man. I think they're going to be beautiful. Here we go. Okay, let's take a peek. That. I have it set up to just automatically start replay mod every time I join a server. This doesn't look right either. Oh, there it goes. Look at that! That is nice. That looks so cool. This bottom part also looks pretty good. Look at that. What a sea arch, right? Obviously the top is a little bit flat. We can add a little bit there, but I like that. This is good too. We hit that with a smooth brush. That looks better. Let's come look over here. We also hit this with the smooth brush. This looks a little bit better. Typically, anytime you use the smooth brush, though, you want to come back and repaint the terrain. So we did We hit this with a smooth brush. You can see no longer individual blocks, or at least a lot less. Good. That still looks nice. Where's our little pocket thing? I don't remember where we had that. Maybe it was over here. Oh, you know what? I think it's right here. Look at that. That is cool. It's such a little detail. Like, this is not very fancy. You know, I mean, this would be something that would be fairly easy to build, even in survival by hand. But doesn't that just look kind of cool? There's this little tiny hidden cove. You know, you could build a building up on top of this. You know, like a lighthouse or something, and have like a secret, you know, a secret water entrance. I think that's really cool. Let's fly over here and take a look at the other sea arch. These are looking good. We smushed this down a little bit, I remember. It's not bad. Here's our other one. That also looks pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. Maybe a little bit much with the top. I feel like the ceiling part should probably be like this stone and cobble mix, or whatever, you know, whatever rock we have higher up. But still looks nice. I think that's pretty much all we had. That looks pretty cool. Cool. And yeah, I'm going to snap a couple quick pictures. I wonder if I can turn my shaders on. There's a small chance that when I turn my shaders on, because I'm streaming and everything, and because my computer's been having issues, that everything just crashes immediately. If that happens, I apologize, but the stream was going to be over soon anyway, I guess. So that's a thing. But let's see if we hold very still, we may be okay. I don't know. Computer's been having some weird difficulties lately. Look at that. That's pretty good looking. Let's see if we can get a couple other good views. I've noticed that it's mostly when I'm moving around with the shaders on that I have issues. So if I hold still, typically not too much of a problem. Look at that. That looks nice. Granted, everything looks a little better with shaders, but try this. Also pretty cool. And probably what I'll do after this stream is over is I'll go in and I'll take this world and I'll render it out in like chunky or something. That way we have we can see more. And yeah, and then I'll post that picture we can look at. And yeah, if anyone has any suggestions, you know, please do send me some comments or whatever and let me know, or ping me on the community Discord or what have you, because I'd love to hear your ideas, and yeah, maybe we can make some of them happen. I really like sea arches. They're pretty cool. Okay. But with that, I think we'll kind of wrap things up there. But yeah, thanks for anyone who came to watch and hung out. Hopefully you learned a little bit about Worldpainter. Or if you didn't learn a lot about Worldpainter, maybe you just enjoyed listening to me ramble while I play Worldpainter. Who knows? But yeah, I'm hoping to make this a fairly regular thing and make lots of maps for you guys to explore and wander around and try out. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for today. So have a nice day, have a great evening or morning or afternoon or whatever it is, and I will catch you in the next one. See you later. Bye.